Welcome to your channel, Stories, Myths and Legends. Today, we will travel to the vast steppes of Central Asia, where a group of warrior nomads changed the course of world history. Join me as I discover the epic history of the Mongol Empire, the largest land empire the world has ever seen. Let us start. 1206 to 1368 was founded by Genghis Khan, r. 1206 to 1227, first great Khan or universal rulers of the Mongol peoples. Genghis forged the empire by uniting nomadic tribes of the Asian steppe and creating a devastatingly effective army with fast, light, and highly coordinated cavalry. Eventually, the empire dominated Asia from the Black Sea to the Korean peninsula. Expert horsemen and archers, the Mongols proved unstoppable in Central Asia and beyond, defeating armies in Iran, Russia, Eastern Europe, China, and many other places. The descendants of Genghis each ruled a part of the empire, the four Khanates, the most powerful of which was the Mongol Yuan dynasty in China, 1271 to 1368, established by Kublai Khan, r. 1260 to 1279. Eventually, the Mongols became part of the sedentary societies they had so easily overwhelmed, and many converted from traditional shamanism to Tibetan Buddhism or Islam. This was a general symptom of the Mongols not only losing part of their cultural identity but also, too, their famed military prowess, as the four Khanates all succumbed to damaging dynastic disputes and the armies of their rivals. Although not famed for creating any lasting architectural wonders or political institutions, the Mongols did make the significant contribution to world culture of finally connecting the Eastern and Western worlds via expanded trade routes, diplomatic embassies, and the movement of missionaries and travelers from Eurasia to the Far East. Nomads of the steppe. The Mongols were pastoral nomads of the Asian steppe who herded sheep, goats, horses, camels, and yaks. These tribes moved according to the seasons and lived in temporary camps of circular felt tents or yurts, ishas. The climate of Mongolia is often harsh and, reflecting this, clothing was warm, durable, and practical. Felt from sheep's wool and animal furs were the most common material to make clothing, which was remarkably similar for both men and women: heelless boots, baggy trousers, a long jacket robe, deal, worn with a leather belt, and a conical hat with ear flaps, while underclothes were made from cotton or silk. The Mongol diet was mostly dairy-based, with cheese, yogurt, butter, and dried milk curds, kurut, being staples. A mildly alcoholic drink, kumis, was made from mare's milk, which was often drunk to excess. The herds being too valuable as a sustainable source of milk, wool, and even dung for fuel, meat was typically acquired through hunting, and wild fruits and vegetables were gathered through foraging. To stock up for winter and provide meat for special feasts such as at the irregular tribal gatherings, special hunts were organized. At these events, a strategy known as the nurge was employed, where riders encompassed a huge area of steppe and slowly drove the game, anything from marmots to wolves, into an ever smaller area where they could be more easily killed by mounted archers. The techniques, organization, and discipline of the nurge would serve the Mongols well when they went to war. Most of these features of medieval daily life in the Mongol world are still continued today by steppe nomads across Asia. Although nomadic life generally saw men do the hunting and women do the cooking, the division of labor was not always so clear, and often both sexes could perform the tasks of the other, including using a bow and riding. Women tended animals, set up and packed away camps, drove the tribe's wagons, looked after the children, prepared foodstuffs, and entertained guests. Women had rather more rights than in most other contemporary Asian cultures, and could both own and inherit property. Several women even ruled as regents in the spells between the reigns of the great Khans. Another area of Mongol life where women were actively involved was religion. Religious beliefs. The Mongols' religion had no sacred texts or particular ceremonies, but was, rather, a mix of animism, ancestor worship, and shamanism. Instances of the elements of fire, earth, and water, impressive geographical sites like mountains, and natural phenomena such as storms were considered to possess spirits. Shamans, who could be both men and women, were thought able to, in a state of trance, communicate with these spirits and travel in their world, helping to find lost souls and divine future events. Other religions were present amongst the Mongols, notably Nestorian Christianity, and, from the 14th century, Tibetan Buddhism, Lamaism, became popular, perhaps thanks to its shamanistic elements. Islam was also widely adopted in the Western Khanates. Above all, though, there was a widespread belief in the principal two deities, the earth or mother goddess, known as Ichujin, who represented fertility, and Tengri, Gok Monkey Tengri, the blue sky, or eternal heaven. This latter deity was seen as a protector god and, crucially, he was thought by the tribal elites to have given the Mongol people a divine right to rule the entire world. Genghis Khan and his successors would put this idea into devastating practice by conquering almost the entire continent of Asia and creating the largest empire ever seen up to that time in history. Foundation by Genghis Khan. The Mongol nomadic tribes were then, used to a tough life, were highly mobile by nature and were trained from childhood to ride horses and shoot bows. These qualities would make them into excellent warriors able to endure long and complex campaigns, cover vast amounts of territory in a short space of time and survive on only the absolute minimum of supplies. Even the role of women and their chores of camp-making and transportation helped the Mongol army as they provided the vital logistic support for their husband warriors. Genghis Khan was perhaps the first Mongol leader to realize that if only the various tribes and clans could be united, the Mongols could master the world. Genghis, born Temujin ca. 1162, overcame a harsh childhood of abandonment and poverty and established himself as an able military commander for Togril, chief of the Kharat tribe. The life and times of Genghis are told in the Secret History of the Mongols, a 13th century chronicle which is our best primary source for the early empire. Over a period of around 10 years from 1195 to 1205, Genghis became a leader in his own right and slowly expanded his domain through a ruthless mixture of diplomacy, warfare, and terror. For many warriors it was often a case of join the young leader or be executed. Tribes such as the Tatars, the name medieval Westerners wrongly applied to the Mongols themselves, Karaids, Nomads, and Merkids were brought into line. Finally, in 1206 in a grand meeting of all tribal leaders, a Kurultai, Genghis Khan, aka Chinggis Khan, was formally recognized as the Great Khan or universal ruler of the Mongols. The Khan attempted to further unify his realm by insisting that the hitherto only spoken Mongol language was made into a written one using the script of the Uyghur Turks and by introducing a lasting law code, the Yosa. Communication was greatly helped by the establishment of the Yam, a network of staging posts, which messengers could use for resupply as they rode across the state. The empire had already begun in earnest, but it was about to get a whole lot bigger. Expansion, Northern China and Persia. Mongol tribal leaders had traditionally achieved and then maintained their position of power by distributing war booty amongst their loyal followers, and Genghis was no different. The Mongol army was based around a core 10,000 men, which was the Khan's personal bodyguard, the Kesikton. Members of this elite would also hold key administrative positions across the empire. Additional troops were gained through conscription of the Mongol tribes and contingents from allies and conquered territories. The main offensive weapon was the light cavalry with its riders expert at firing the powerful Mongol composite bow. Mongol horses were another asset both for their sturdiness and stamina, but also their sheer numbers, allowing riders up to 16 spare mounts, which meant an army could travel huge distances with great speed. Genghis' first target after becoming Great Khan was the Jin state, aka Jurchen Jin dynasty, 1115 to 1234, in northern China. The speed of the Mongol cavalry and the terror tactics when dealing with captured cities reaped dividends, and the internally fractured Jin state was forced to retreat to the south. A simultaneous target was the Tangut state of Shixia, aka Hexia, 1038 to 1227, also in northern China, and similarly incapable of stopping Genghis' relentless progress across East Asia. The third target in this period was Song dynasty China, aka Sung, 960 to 1279. Richer and more powerful than its neighbors, the Song proved more resilient, despite Genghis sacking many of their cities, but their time would come. By 1219, even northern Korea had been attacked as Genghis chased down the troublesome Khitan tribes who had fled there. Seemingly intent on earning his title as a universal ruler, Genghis now turned his attention to Western Asia. From 1218, the Persian Khwarezm Empire was attacked. A Mongol army of 100,000 men swept all comers aside, capturing such notable cities as Bukhara and Samarkand. In 1221 the Mongols swept into northern Afghanistan. In 1223 a Russian army was defeated at Khalkha, and then the Caspian Sea was entirely encircled as the army returned home. The Muslims of the region now had a new title for Genghis, the Accursed One. Sites had been destroyed down to their foundations, civilians were massacred, and even irrigation systems were wrecked. The Asian world had been turned upside down in less than 2 decades. Genghis Khan died on the 18th of August, 1227 of an unknown illness, but his successors would ensure the Mongol New World Order would far outlast its creator. Ogedai Khan attacks Europe. Genghis had decreed that his empire was to be divided amongst his 4 sons Jochi, Chagatai, Chagadai, Tului, Tului, and Ogodai, with each ruling a khanate, although Jochi would predecease his father in 1227. Ogedai became the new Great Khan, 1229 to 1241, and thus ruler of all the Mongols. The unified empire would endure until 1260 CE, when the 4 khanates became fully autonomous. Ogedai Khan further consolidated the Mongol state apparatus by appointing members of the imperial bodyguard and ministers as regional governors Idarakachi, conducting a census and imposing a proper tax system, as opposed to the mere confiscation of property. In 1235, a capital was selected, Karakorum, in Mongolia. The Yam network was expanded, wells were protected along trade routes, and traveling merchants were given military protection. In terms of conquests, Ogedai carried right on where his predecessor had left off and, with the help of the gifted General Subutai, aka Subetay, 1176 to 1248, known as one of the 4 hounds of the Khan, campaigned against the Jin in 1230 to 1. The Jin capital of Kaifeng fell in 1233, and the campaign of 1234 brought about the suicide of the Jin Emperor, Aizong, 1224 to 1234, and the total and final collapse of the Jin state. Korea was repeatedly raided in this period, too. From 1235 Subutai coordinated the campaign across Central Asia, capturing such cities as Tiflis, Tbilisi. From 1236 to 1242, an army of 150,000 men organized in 5 separated divisions, then marched through Kazakhstan to Uzbekistan to attack Eastern Europe around the Volga River. Victories were gained against the Bulgars, Rus, Poles, and Hungarians in multiple campaigns. Seemingly coming from nowhere, the Mongol cavalry became known as the Horsemen of the Devil. Great cities like Kiev, 1240, Krakow, 1241, Buda and Pest, 1241, were all sacked and looted. It seemed that only Ogedai's death in 1241 saved Europe from further incursions, as the Mongol leaders were then compelled to return to Karakorum to elect a new Khan. The next 2 Khans would be Gayat Khan, 1246 to 1248, and Monkey Khan, 1251 to 1259, with regents ruling in between, but it would be Kublai, grandson of Genghis, who showed the greatest ambition as he took the Mongol conquests to a whole new level. Kublai Khan attacks China and Japan. Kublai Khan would reign from 1260 to 1294, but he had already made an impression before that when he campaigned with Monkey Khan against Song China. Kublai had to battle with his younger brother Arik Bog, 1219 to 1266, for the position of Great Khan, but Kublai won, and, even if the empire was now effectively split into 4 khanates, he had the consolation that his part remained the richest. Kublai, in any case, was ambitious for a title even more prestigious, Chinese Emperor. Consequently, the Song were again attacked, but this time Kublai engaged in siege warfare using superior catapults, knowledge acquired from Western Asia. City after city fell over the next 11 years, and, with the fall of the capital Linen on the 28th of March, 1276, so too fell the Song dynasty. On the 19th of March, 1279, a great naval battle was won at Yashan near modern-day Macau, another instance of successful adaptation in Mongol warfare, and the very last Song resistance quashed. Kublai had defeated what all steppe nomads before him had dreamed of, the mighty and immensely rich state of China. In 1271, Kublai declared himself the Emperor of China and his new order the Yuan dynasty, meaning origin or center. Daiju, Beijing, was made the new capital, with Xanadu, Shangju, in the northeast being the emperor's summer retreat. Proving as able an administrator as he was a conqueror, Kublai organized his huge state into 12 provinces and promoted trade through beneficial taxation for merchants, the encouragement of paper money, and improving road and canal networks to better transport goods. Kublai was not satisfied, though, and launched 2 attacks on Japan in 1274 and 1281. Both would fail as a result of staunch local resistance and terrible storms the Japanese would call kamikaze or divine winds. Undeterred, Kublai launched attacks in Southeast Asia with invasions of Vietnam, 1257, 1281, and 1286, Burma, 1277 and 1287, and Java, 1292, all achieving only mixed results. It seemed the Mongol Empire had reached its zenith and the 13th century would now only see a decline. The Khanates and decline. While the great Khans had been preoccupied with the eastern part of the Mongol Empire, the central and western parts largely went their own way. The Golden Horde, centered on the western Eurasian steppe, was founded by Batu Khan, died in 1255, grandson of Genghis, around 1227. It would outlast all the others, officially terminating in 1480, but from the mid-14th century, the Russians and Lithuanians were resurgent in the area. The Ilkhanate, centered on Persia, was founded by Hulegu, died in 1265, another grandson of Genghis around 1260. It would be constantly threatened by its southeastern neighbor the Mamluk Sultanate, 1261 to 1517, and disintegrated due to dynastic disputes in 1335. The Chagatai Khanate was established by Chagatai, 1183 to 1242, the second son of Genghis, and would remain the most truly Mongol state where nomadic roots proved difficult to shake off. Again, dynastic disputes brought its collapse in 1363. All 3 Western Khanates would constantly fight each other in border disputes. Each would eventually adopt Islam as their state religion, itself yet another bone of contention between elites. The territories of the Ilkhanate and Chagatai Khanate were eventually taken over by Timur or Tamerlane, founder of the Timurid Empire, 1370 to 1507. Even Yuan China succumbed to the all-too-familiar civil wars from rival groups and, with a weak economy and beset by famines and localized rebellions, the Ming dynasty was able to take over China in 1368. In the end, the Mongols had become a part of the sedentary societies they had so easily conquered, which made them just as susceptible as any other state to a takeover by those willing to embrace new ideas and technologies. The Mongol legacy. The Mongols may not have troubled many modern museum curators with their art or left fine buildings to admire, but they did leave a lasting legacy in other ways. Perhaps their greatest effect on world culture was to make the first serious connections between the East and West. The Mongol Empire, the largest contiguous land empire up to that point, stretched across 1/5 of the globe, and their soldiers were obliged to fight Teutonic knights at one end while at the others they faced samurai warriors, neither of which enemy had any notion of the other's existence. Hitherto, the Chinese and Europeans had each viewed the other's lands as a semi-mythical place of monsters. As ambassadors, missionaries, merchants, and travelers like Marco Polo, 1254 to 1324, were encouraged to freely cross Asia, so contact increased, and ideas and religions were spread. Gunpowder, paper, printing, and the compass all became familiar in Europe. The Mongols spread ideas in cuisine, too, such as making their shulen, broth cum stew a popular dish across Asia even today. There were, alas, less advantageous consequences, like the Black Death, 1347 to 1352, first transferred from a pocket of remote China to the Black Sea, and from there to Venice and the rest of Europe. In Mongolia, though, the empire is remembered fondly as a golden era, and Genghis Khan, the starter of it all, continues to be honored with regular ceremonies in the Mongolian capital of Ulaanbaatar. Although the Mongol Empire as a unified entity disintegrated, its impact on world history was lasting. Not only did they redraw borders and destroy kingdoms, they also facilitated an era of unprecedented trade and communication. The Pax Mongolica allowed cultures to intertwine, and knowledge, from gunpowder to the printing press, to spread throughout the world. Furthermore, the figure of Genghis Khan remains a source of inspiration and a symbol of national unity in Mongolia. The Mongol Empire was a unique phenomenon in history, born of the military genius and ambition of a single man, but sustained by a complex network of alliances, laws, and trade. His legacy lives on, reminding us how history can be shaped by force, but also by adaptation and integration. What did you think of this incredible story? Don't forget to subscribe and like if you want more content like this. Until next time in Stories, Myths and Legends. Remember, history is not just about what was, but how it has shaped the world we live in today. See you in the next video, history lovers.